how do we actually know with such confidence that there's this many wounds of the crown of thorns even?
Well, those who have studied the shroud firsthand and those who have published on it will debate. But from what I can see, the range is somewhere between 30 to 50 different flows of blood, say, emanating from what's believed to be a crown of thorns. Mm-hmm. So that gives you a little margin to understand. Yeah, maybe I can take with a grain of salt an exact number like 50, but I'm not going to take seriously a number like 150 or a number like 2. so somewhere in that range. Or for example, those who say the number of scourge wounds, exactly 372. Maybe it's about 240 on the back and 120 on the front. Well, that gives me a ballpark figure of someone who is up close and personal with the shroud and who published in the most respected journal articles in the world where there's peer review. Now, does everybody agree about those numbers? No. But at the same time, so for example, the flagrum, like you can see a dumbbell shape that is reproduced again and again and again. Well, I can see that. I can make a standard and then apply it here, there, and everywhere and see how I could get a number. But that number is not going to be 12, and that number is not going to be 3,000. Yeah. It's going to be within a certain range. What's interesting is that all of that is new. Look, the gospel doesn't tell us anything about the number of scourges. Right, there's no numbers. But I just imagined, when I was a kid anyway, that he was just scourged on his back. And then you learn from the shroud that this man has been scourged from the clavicle to the ankle, front and back, and even in the pelvic region and the buttocks. They're just as deep as everywhere else on the body. There was no loincloth. Otherwise, the wounds wouldn't be as severe in those places. And that was the whole point of scourging, by the way, was to publicly humiliate so that all passing by would wag their heads and say, gosh, better not do that, because I don't want to suffer like him. And so it was messaging to say, this guy really did something disagreeable to those in authority, and that you don't want to follow suit. But of course, more deeply, this is what Jesus stepped into in order to work out our salvation. Like, I remember when Jesus is arrested, he says, if it's Jesus you seek, I am. In other words, he steps right into this torchlight. He doesn't dodge the bullet. He's voluntarily stepping into this. And there's a lesson there, I think. There's an eye-opening experience behind that when you realize that Jesus, he could have redeemed us, I suppose, in any old way. He's God, after all. And yet the manifestation that he puts on display of divine love is extreme. And we've never seen anything like it. And here we are, 2,000 years later, and it's still talking about it, still in the center of our churches, and still, look, I wear a crucifix on my neck. Why should that be the symbol of divine love, of God's victory over sin and death? I think nobody saw that coming, and yet here we are, still moved by it.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up a good point with the depiction of the cross, because what's kind of interesting about the shroud is that the majority of what's depicted here is not the crucifixion. I mean, there's the scourging, there's the crown of thorns, and there's the spear wound.
Right.
Those are not the crucifixion, and I know you can see the wounds in the wrists and in the feet, but the majority of the story that this is telling is the suffering that happened before that.
Exactly.
And I think that we forget that even when there's a crucifix,
yes,
where it's just the spear wound or just the crown of thorns, you forget the full body scourging that happened.
That's right. And I know you're tracing historic Christianity, you're tracing the way Christians think about the cross. We think about it in terms of the passion. Well, where's the beginning and where's the end? Christians always celebrated the Holy Triduum from Holy Thursday, starting with the Last Supper, moving through the agony in the garden, and the arrest, and the Via Crucis, the way of the cross. We remember the stations that led up to it. He's crowned, he's scourged. Yes, all of that is part of one Christ event, all the way through resurrection. And we really can't separate it. We can't reduce it to just any one of those things. There is one arc that moves from his dying to his rising, and it's seamless.
It's a story.
It's a story. So we sum it up. We sum it up like this: dying, you destroyed our death, and rising, you restored our life. It's not just destructive. It's not just that he's burying the effects of sin in the grave, leaving them there. He takes upon the sins of the world. Where does he go with them? Down into hell, right? He delivers them into the abode of the dead, but then he rises victorious, leaving sin and death behind. That was always seen to be two sides of one coin, that Jesus was giving us a victory. And that's why we wear it proudly. It was a symbol of defeat for the Romans. That's why they paraded you around in this way. It was supposed to showcase how much more powerful we are than the one on the cross. The irony is that now it's the sign, it's our boast, the cross of Christ, because look, he bounced back. He lives again. The light shines out of the darkness.
Thank you so much for watching this clip. If you want to see the full video, check that out right up here. If you like this kind of stuff, like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.